Goldie, welcome back. All right, so today we're going to be building this little diorama wall. It's an exterior stone wall, and I'm going to show you what I use. It's foam insulation board. You can get this on Amazon. I'm going to link it below. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and lay out where I want my window, measure that correctly, and make a score line. So what I'm going to use is this little pin tool. It's like a needle tool. You can get it at the dollar store or just use a thin little needle. So this foam insulation board is awesome. It's often used in construction, but of course we like to use construction materials for our mini materials because they give that realistic look. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out exactly where I want my window. This stuff is very dentable, so you can see my cat's got to it already, but that's okay. That's why I'm going to use this side because in the end it won't matter. This is our inspiration here. This is the look we're going for, so I'm going to go ahead and put my inspiration pictures there so I can see them for reference. And I'm just taking that same tool and I'm just going to very kind of organically draw some shapes that look like the stones and using my reference photo so I have kind of somewhere to start from. Now, this is going to feel kind of awkward if you're not used to drawing because this kind of material, it's very not forgiving. So if you mess up, especially if you're doing like more of a brick pattern or something with more particular measurements, then it's not very forgiving. So in this instance, it's really kind of just organic shapes that are falling together. So you can't really mess this one up. So I'm going to go ahead and freehand this. I'm just kind of using my picture as reference and just going through the whole thing. I'm going to fill up all of the material with those shapes. This kind of stone is very like imperfect anyway. So even if there's a shape that you drew that you can't really get out or don't like, don't worry about it. It's all going to come together. So now I'm going to take this little wire brush and I'm going to just very kind of in small circular motions give it some texture. And what this is going to do is just give it a little bit of like a base for the next part that we're going to do, which is even further texture it. So I'm going to grab some foil and I'm going to just kind of gently push it into the stones. And I'm alternating this kind of texture all around so that the whole thing kind of has more of an organic feel. If you look at the reference picture, some of the stones are more heavily textured than others. So I kind of just alternate and switch out every now and then like you see here. And then I'm going to just take that same one after I've textured some of them more harshly and I'm going to roll it all around. And you can do this lightly or hard, but this is a very dentable porous surface, so the more that you texture it, the deeper the indents are going to be. So go ahead, proceed on the other side and throughout the whole design. You can see it's starting to come together a little bit. I love this material because you can really get that realistic look. Look at that. So we're on our way here. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. We're going to go ahead and cut out this window and I'm going to show you the type of blade that I best recommend for this. We're going to want it to be very sharp. Do not try this with an X-Acto. It's not deep enough. So I'm going to use this little box cutter utility knife. You can get this on Amazon. I'm going to link this below as well. And if you cut this material with a dull blade, you will not like the result. So go ahead and make sure it's sharp, okay? Make sure it is a brand new blade. With a sharp blade, it cuts like butter. So we're going to go ahead and just fit in our window, make sure it fits. If there's any adjustments or any extra cutting you need to do, go ahead and do that now. Mine fits just right. I'm going to grab this simple grout. It is a ready-made pre-mixed grout in bright white. And I like to use some pigments and some acrylic paint. I'm going to just mix in that as well as I can. And what this is going to do is add some depth into our stone. I'm going to add a little bit of more pigment so that it's a little bit darker. Now this is a little trick. It's from my old pastry school days. I'm going to just add a pastry bag or a piping bag and I'm going to put that mixture into there. And you could skip this step, but it helps with the precision of putting the grout in between the lines. If you're not good at piping, don't worry about it. There are probably other ways that you could do this, but this is a neat little trick that I found that works. So I'm going to go ahead and put those lines in there as best as I can. Don't worry if some kind of scoots out of the grout lines. Don't worry about that. We're going to scrape it off anyways as it dries. So the deeper your indentations that you made, the deeper the grout is going to go in there and give it more of a realistic look. So after you're done, I'm going to go ahead and scrape off the majority of it and see how it's kind of going over the stone. That's good. We want to kind of give it some depth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a baby wipe and I'm going to scrape off and kind of rub in where the grout lines are kind of flowing over. I'm going to take a darker kind of in contrasting color just for some other depth, and I'm going to just kind of fill in where the other grout didn't go. This is just, like I said, it's going to give it some texture. It's going to give it some definition. It doesn't look like it right now, but trust me, it will all come together. So now for the fun part, we're going to mix a little bit of acrylic paint and some water. And this first layer, we're just very carefully trying to coat that lavender color of the foam. And this layer should not be thick at all. It should almost be like a water wash. So we're gonna pat it down, and I'm using one of those little like magic foam sponges, and it just helps to give it that light little coat that we want the first time around. So when you're working with texture, you want to work in layers. So like I said, this first layer, we're going to make sure it's very light. You should still see that lavender tone underneath. And the second layer, you're going to kind of want to alternate with more of the white here and there. And this is going to continue to add layers and add texture and create depth within our piece. Now I'm using the same exact white. It's like a cream white paint, and I'm using that same exact paint throughout this whole piece, but it looks like I am having multiple shades of that, and that's because we're just layering it differently on each layer. Now, depending on your style and your reference photo, you can use any color, but like I said, this is all one white. And as you can see, it's really creating a lot of depth within the grout lines that we've already established. So I'm going to just go ahead and take a nice dark color and fill in some of the grout lines that got covered in white. And I'm going to just take a baby wipe and smear it so that it kind of adds a nice shadow to all of the stones. So at this point, you can kind of see it all come together. It should look pretty realistic at this point, but I'm going to add a little bit more texture by adding some white paint and mixing it with a little bit of that grout. And I'm going to take my finger and just kind of add more texture where I see fit. Now, if you don't like your hands getting dirty, then I guess you can use a little brush for this, but I think it looks really realistic when you just get your hands all in it. So go ahead, add any last finishing touches on this thing, and you're just about done. You can also seal this with a matte Mod Podge, which is what I done, and this is kind of what it looks like right now. We still need to fit our window, and I'm going to show you on the next video how I'm going to finish the other side, which will be the interior. So if you are interested, stay tuned for that. If you've stuck around this long, I appreciate you, and I hope that you've enjoyed. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.